This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, our weekend show is obviously very different to the weekday show. We are each nominating here what we think is the biggest story of the week. We both put forward the most remarkable story and a sleeper story, one that's not getting the attention that we think it deserves. And then we each pick our favourite story and we rope our Fear and Greed colleague Adam Lang in to judge a winner, which is always a pretty tough task for him. Adam, good morning.
Oh, good morning, Michael. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, Adam. As the weeks have gone on, I think your judging has gotten better and more arbitrary, which I think is a wonderful thing. So much so that Michael and I, before the show, just...
Do you take bets?
Just move on.
You do, don't you?
No, look, we just check in to make sure we're not sort of having the same stories. Mm-hmm. And we have got some great stories today. And ones that we've already laughed about what you're going to say about them.
Okay. I look forward to it.
Let's get into it. The biggest story of the week. And it's really a case of also listening out for the little direct appeals to Adam's sensibilities throughout these stories, just to see if we can swing a couple of points in our favour. Go for it, Sean. What was the biggest story for you?
Well, it was a huge week for inflation and inflation expectations. And therefore, interest rates. There were a few things this week that convinced market economists that the end of the rate hiking cycle is nigh. In fact, the Reserve Bank might not even raise rates next week. First, the monthly inflation figures. Inflation last month came in at 6.8% for the 12 months to the end of February. That was down from 7.4% a month earlier and below market expectations. The Bureau of Statistics figures pretty much confirms that inflation peaked late last year, and there are signals that the pace of inflation will continue to fall. For example, this week retail sales figures show that over the 3 months to February, retail spending was down 1.5%. Now that's the worst outcome in the history of the series. Incredible. Then there was a 1% fall in job vacancies, suggesting the heat is coming out of the labour market. But it isn't all one-way traffic here. The federal government is effectively backing an inflation-matching wage rise for the nation's 180,000 lowest paid workers, and unions said they're pushing for a record 7% increase in award wages for 2.6 million workers. The ACTU's submission to the annual wage review by the Fair Work Commission yesterday, if successful, will push the annual minimum wage to $45,337. Big jumps in wages will put pressure on inflation. Plenty going on this week, Adam. And listeners, of course, it's going to be a very interesting board meeting at the Reserve Bank next Tuesday. Michael.
Do you have to force yourself to sound so excited about inflation there, Sean?
No. This is exciting. I mean, when I grew up, the whole scourge of inflation, I remember as a kid people talking about it in the 80s. And we haven't had it for ages. And obviously I went to university, studied economics, worked at the Reserve Bank. No such thing as inflation. Suddenly it's back. It is exciting, Michael.
A huge week, Sean, for M&A activity. And really, I mean, this is genuinely exciting. There's no kind of forced excitement here, no false enthusiasm. The main event, the big kind of draw card, the one that everyone's talking about everywhere. You walk down the street and people are talking, hey, did you see the $18.7 billion bid for Origin Energy by Canadian giant Brookfield? Yeah, and then the person next to them goes, yeah, and I heard the Origin's board has accepted the offer. And so, everyone's talking about it. You cannot go anywhere without hearing this. And obviously...
You are like conceding already, Michael.
I am not. I am trying to paint a picture for you, Sean, and also maybe for Adam as well, just to kind of illustrate just how important this story is and the fact that as really the representative of the everyman, me, the people, I'm hearing this on the street and in the shops and at schools. And obviously Origin's board has accepted the offer. Brookfield has promised to invest billions to accelerate the decarbonisation of Origin Group. So this obviously isn't just a big deal for shareholders, it's a big deal for the shift towards green energy, particularly kind of in this country. So that I would say it amplifies the significance of this story because it's not just about the details of the bid and the deal itself. It is actually the flow-on effects, the long-term impact on the transition to greener energy in this country. And actually worth mentioning as well, while I'm talking about green energy, that this week the federal government won support for its emissions reduction plan from the Greens, giving it the numbers that it needed to pass the safeguard mechanism legislation, forcing the country's 215 biggest emitters to cut pollution by nearly 5% each year until 2030. And Origin Energy is one of those. So it is very topical, very much related, and not at all just shoehorned in here to try and get extra points. It wasn't the only deal being discussed on the streets of my neighbourhood, at least. Liontown Resources received a bid from the biggest lithium company in the world, which sent Liontown's share price up a whopping 68% in one day. They knocked back the bid. There may be other suitors, so it is clearly an exciting sector. United Malt, set to be bought by the exotically named Maltery Soufflé in a proposed $1.5 billion deal. If I was a company, I would like to be bought by Maltery Soufflé. It sounds very enticing.
Everyone's talking about that one too.
Oh, they are. Like, oh, goodness me. I've never heard our local primary school sounding so kind of cultured. Everyone's there going, did you hear about Maltery Soufflé? And then funerals company Invacare rejected a $1.8 billion bid from private equity group TPG. The bid for Helios by its smaller rival Australian Clinical Laboratories suffered a bit of a setback too this week. Overall, it was a big week. So much activity in the M&A space. And all of this, Sean, is happening at a time when global financial markets are actually experiencing a little bit of calm. There's been so much kind of volatility, so much excitement, so much uncertainty over the last few weeks. And so we're actually seeing this case where it's a little bit calmer globally, but so exciting here at home.
So exciting.
Adam.
Michael, for someone who doesn't leave the house very much, gosh, you heard a lot of words on the street.
Oh, well played. That is superb. Well done, Adam. No, I get out. I mean, I have to. I've got to have my ear to the ground. I've got to hear what people are saying. And this week it was all about M&A activity. I'm sorry.
I reckon you would literally have your ear to the ground.
Well, I have it to plenty of doors and windows.
Sean wins on this one. Michael, you've really compiled a great number of stories. It has been an excellent week for M&A and impact on green energy. But really, I think the majority of people have breathed a sigh of relief when we saw those inflation numbers, and just the hope that the interest rate cycle can stop going up and maybe pause and hopefully come down. So Sean wins this one.
Whew. There you go. Look, what I loved, Michael, was your feigned enthusiasm for that stuff, because let's be perfectly honest, you're not the biggest corporate journalist I've come across. Like, generally, big M&A deals don't exactly float your boat, but you were going for it then. Well done. And I mean, clearly mine was a better story, but I'm still happy to give you points for effort.
Additional points. Did you hear that?
I did, yes.
That sounds like, remember that time when I awarded Sean some bonus points and it actually was enough to give him the win overall in the end? So I'm pretty sure Sean just gave me some bonus points.
Righto, Michael. What's your most remarkable story of the week?
Well, I think that it's remarkable that Australia now has wall-to-wall Labor governments on the mainland. Complete Labor domination happened kind of for the first time in history in 2007, and it hasn't really happened since then. But the victory in New South Wales last weekend by Labor, led by Chris Minns, now means that the most senior Liberal in government in this country is the Tasmanian Premier, Jeremy Rockcliffe. So what So he would have to be nervous, wouldn't he?
Surely.
And so it made me wonder as well, kind of what's it mean now for National Cabinet? Because it's a slightly kind of one-sided affair. Do you think Jeremy's going to get a bit ganged up on in National Cabinet? It means obviously as well that the union movement probably has a little bit more power across most of the country, pretty much all of the country. It also means that, and this is very significant, that the Liberal and National parties have a heck of a lot of work to do to unseat Labor leaders. They're in a really tricky position at the moment because they need to figure out what they stand for, who they're trying to appeal to, whether they move more towards the centre, double down on conservative values and shift out towards the right. Good luck trying to figure that one out, because whatever they pick, they will alienate people, and it is a tough kind of position trying to come back from, being in opposition pretty much everywhere. One interesting point to note, though, is that commentators were quick to point out that last time there were wall-to-wall Labor governments when Kevin Rudd won, 5 state governments changed shortly afterwards because there's kind of perception, obviously, that it's not necessarily a good thing for one side to be in power everywhere, and you need a bit of a balance. Will it happen again this time? Maybe. We'll have to wait till the Queensland election next year to find out. And yes, I think we can all feel a little bit sorry for Jeremy Rockcliffe as well in Tasmania, because he is going to be having some sleepless nights between now and the next Tasmanian election. And I just think overall it's pretty remarkable.
Jez will handle it. Jez will handle it. What I thought was interesting, that's not that I want to add to your story, Michael. However, the business community actually coming out during the week and saying, hey, Coalition, can you guys actually get in the game? Because at the moment, the Greens and the crossbenchers seem to have all this power, and the Libs and Nats aren't even getting a voice. So it is quite remarkable. In fact, like to me, that would be the most remarkable story, except that Clive Palmer, the great man himself, this week came out seeking almost $300 billion, with a B, in damages from Australia, we taxpayers, in a case related to stalled iron ore projects and emergency legislation passed by the Western Australian government back in 2020. Basically, he took on Mark McGowan and he lost. Adding to the remarkableness of the stories that the country's most recent former Attorney General, Christian Porter, is going to help Clive Palmer fight the case. I don't reckon that passes the pub test. So Palmer's lodged a notice of arbitration via his Singapore-headquartered Zeph Investments, seeking $198.2 billion in damages, plus interest and costs under international trade law, claiming the West Australian law rushed through in 2020 breaches the ASEAN, Australia, New Zealand Free Trade Agreement. Now, I'm not sure what's more remarkable here. The amount, the AUKUS deal over 30 years, bunch of subs, $368 billion. This is $300 billion. Basically, it's about the same as the cost of what the government spent in economic relief packages throughout COVID. It's about what the government spends annually in welfare plus social security plus health, and they are the biggest spending items. Incredible. That's remarkable, the amount. But then to be able to use the most recent Attorney General, who comes full of knowledge about the ins and outs of governments, just a touch rich, I reckon. Remarkable story, though. So Clive Palmer takes out my most remarkable story, but of course we've got to have a special mention for Donald Trump. A grand jury has voted to indict Donald Trump on criminal charges. It's all about his role in paying hush money to a porn star. Clearly, that's going to shake up the presidential race, the 2024 presidential race. So he certainly deserves a special mention in this category too. Adam.
Sean, quick question. If, say, Clive won this battle,
which he won't, let's be honest, but yes.
$300 billion, and he spent all of that on election campaigns, do you reckon he could win one seat?
Yeah, maybe. He might get the one.
It's just a case of litigation for sport, isn't it? It's just...
Feels like it.
I've got another story later on that is litigation because of sport.
Oh, good tease. Good tease. Michael wins on this one. As much as Clive Palmer's litigation is remarkable, including Christian Porter, it's just dumbfounding. I think the fact of this political landmark is really incredible. So, Michael, well done. You win Remarkable Story of the Week.
Oh, you know what I hate?
Losing?
Well, I hate losing, but I also hate losing when I kind of think that I probably should have lost. Like, mostly with stories, I'm like, Aylmer, you're an idiot. How can you be fooled by that fellow idiot, Michael Thompson?
You're winning a lot of friends here today, Sean, aren't you?
I know. But sometimes there are just stories and, Michael said his and I'm like, I wish I'd thought of that.
That was actually a concession, I think.
It hurt.
It took a little bit to get there and there were a few insults along the way, but but we got there in the end. All right, 1-1. We'll come back in a moment and find the sleeper story of the week. All right, Sean, we are looking for the sleeper story of the week. I will remind you that the score is 1-1 at the moment, so it cannot be closer it cannot. Well, I mean, last week it was a dead heat, so I suppose that was pretty close. But we are looking for the sleeper story. So maybe a story that's not getting the attention that you feel that it deserves. We'll see whether Adam agrees, or perhaps a story that's flying under the radar a little bit. So take it away. What was it?
My sleeper story is that Qantas, Airbus and the Queensland government are going to contribute a few $1 million each, well, at least Qantas and Airbus are a few $1 million, Queensland government's a bit less, to a feasibility study to explore the creation of a $400 million ethanol-based sustainable aviation fuel factory in North Queensland. If airlines like Qantas and manufacturers like Airbus want to achieve net zero by 2050, which is their stated goal, they need a fuel that doesn't emit carbon. Aviation accounts for about 2.5% of global carbon emissions. It is a massive polluter and it's getting bigger because more people are taking planes. There have already been biofuel-powered flights, but it's very, very early in the growth of that industry. The idea is to use ethanol from sugarcane and wheat starch and turn that into sustainable aviation fuel, SAF. The two airline industry leaders have committed to invest as much as $300 million to accelerate the establishment of SAF in Australia. Now, they're talking about a facility that could produce up to 100 million litres of sustainable aviation fuel each year. Very early, but a significant step towards turning agriculture and sugarcane byproducts into aviation fuel in Australia. Wouldn't that be great? It actually reminds me quite a bit of Back to the Future.
Yes, I was going to say this. And putting banana peels and everything into the flux capacitor.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Into the flux capacitor. I think it was Back to the Future 2, actually.
Yep.
Where the professor had discovered that. But that's what it sounds like. And it could be happening.
Oh. Would you like to fly in a plane where you look out the window and they're refueling, they're just shoving sugarcane into the tank? I'm sure it's slightly more developed than that, but that's kind of what I picture it.
Yeah, indeed. Anyway, that's my sleeper story because it could turn out to be one of the sort of generational changes. The advocates of this, because it's actually been used in in Boeing aircraft so far, advocates of it who obviously are talking their own book, reckon that this, is seriously generational changing.
Oh, I love that. A little bit of an extra flourish there at the end.
Yeah.
Generational makes it sound so significant.
It does.
The sleeper story for me this week is this is a really big deal, and it is the judgment from the federal court that can override a key part of employment contracts or agreements. The ruling declares that employers have to ask workers if they want to work public holidays. They can't just roster them on anymore, regardless of what's in their contract. They actually have to now ask. So why is it a sleeper story? It is because this may have originated in the mining sector, ruling that BHP breached the Fair Work Act by requiring miners to work on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. But you can absolutely guarantee that other sectors will be paying attention. It is a big win, a huge win for unions. And when you think about all those sectors where workers are regularly rostered on to work public holidays, think kind of retail and hospitality or emergency services or healthcare or logistics, the flow-on effects of this story could be absolutely huge. This is a story that is going to become much, much bigger further down the track, maybe even not that far down the track. This could actually kind of kick in quite soon in other sectors. It is the very definition of a sleeper story. Adam.
Oh, okay. I can't split these two stories. It's a dead heat on this one because you're both right. I mean, Michael, this federal court judgment is extraordinary. And Sean, this could be a remarkable evolution for our country in terms of production of biofuels and green energy impacts and so on. So both of them are crackers. Well done.
All right. So we're now 1.5 to 1.5. So it is very tight going into the final round, which is, it's disappointing for me.
I sense some fear here.
Yeah.
No, well, partly because I thought that federal court story, because of the impact on business in particular and the impact on just everyday people and workers, was a guaranteed winner. But also I thought I needed that guaranteed win. I needed that point to kind of help me through this last round because Sean teased what his favourite story was going to be through the week when he and it's going to be hard to beat. But anyway,
it's your favourite story too, I suspect.
I'm going to have a crack at a favourite story that is not the one that Sean wants to do, because I'm not like that. I wouldn't just jump in first and do it and beat you to it. I like the story about, even that sounds a bit flat. Let me try it again. Forget I said I like the story. I love this story this week about Greenland moving to a permanent daylight saving time. It seems very timely, obviously, for us, because this weekend marks the end of daylight saving time in Australia for another 6 months, which is obviously a dark, miserable 6 months where everything just seems that little bit worse because nighttime starts at 5:30. Anyway, back to Greenland. They made the decision to move the clocks forward 1 hour permanently so that they're closer to kind of European business hours. And I like this decision for a couple of reasons, a number of reasons, I suspect. I can't say a couple because I've probably got more than two. Number one, when you live in a country with kind of 20 hours of light in summer and 4 hours in winter, why not play around with the clock? Like, why not just change it up, see what happens? It's not like you'd be sleeping anyway. You've got just something to do. Point number two, it brings them closer to alignment with Denmark, which actually owns Greenland. So there's only kind of 2 hours difference, not 3. So it's good for business. So tick that one off your kind of criteria box, Adam. I know you're kind of marking as we go. Point number 3, and this is the big one. This shows the potential for a major national change to take place. Sure, there's only 56,000 people in Greenland. So getting kind of consensus on something like this is probably easy. It's the equivalent of getting, say, the town of Wagga to agree on something. But surely we can learn something from this as a nation. If Greenland can move its clocks forward, why can't we get a little bit of consistency here? We've got too many time zones in Australia. And as someone who spent part of their career trying to coordinate networked radio programs between different states and different hours and things, I say it is time to end this lunacy. And if we can do that, if we can get kind of Queensland and New South Wales and Victoria to agree and WA to kind of sort itself out, if we can do that.
Have you ever thought about the sun in all this?
No, irrelevant.
Okay. Righto, go on.
If we can do that, if we could get everyone to agree, imagine what else we could achieve. Tax reform. Reform to the structure of government. Any one of a number of things on Adam's list of personal grievances. The sky's the limit. Thank you.
This is open soliciting, isn't it?
Oh, dear.
I gave it everything.
You did. You left nothing. You left nothing on the field. You like that.
Goodness me, I need to sit down. Please, Sean.
Okay. My favourite story involved the rich and famous, specifically actress Gwyneth Paltrow. Now, Gwyneth is being sued by a skier over a collision they had at Deer Valley Resort in Utah back in 2016. The trial took 6 days. It will have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to run, of course. What happened? Retired optometrist Terry Sanderson sued Paltrow for at least $300,000 in damages for allegedly running into him while skiing. Paltrow countersued for $1 and attorney fees, claiming Sanderson ran into her. Now, the critical point is who was skiing uphill and who was skiing downhill. The unwritten code of skiing is that if you're uphill of someone, then it's your responsibility not to knock them down. And after all that, Gwyneth won. But really, I don't know, Adam, you would have skied a bit, I'm sure, to sue someone over it. The world has gone totally mad, which, of course, brings me to something I had never heard of until following this particular court case.
Oh, no. Here it comes.
Vagina eggs.
He said it.
I'm going to say, Sean, can I just jump in here and say those are two words that I never want to hear coming out of your mouth. And now I've had to hear it several times this week. Please, roll on.
Vagina eggs, which Miss Paltrow promotes or has done as beneficial to vaginal health. Not sure anyone else high profile does that, and my research suggests that many experts say using jade or quartz eggs in the downstairs department actually isn't beneficial. Now, I'm no expert in this, but I am intrigued.
I feel like we need to ask some questions here about your research. And that is research in inverted commas. I don't know about this. It feels like this is a high-risk area for us as a business news podcast.
Look, but the initial research was via the Washington Post article, which was fascinating. It was all about Ms. Paltrow's efforts promoting vagina eggs. So then I had to Google exactly what they are and what they're supposedly used for. Now, I don't really want to go into the detail, but we can say that they are jade or quartz eggs. And the consensus among experts on Google, and so I'm talking about hospitals and health arenas, is that it's probably not the best idea to do what Miss Paltrow suggests you do with vagina eggs. But middle-aged man talking about this, very, very uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. How much of your research was on YouTube, Sean?
Adam, help me out here. Help me out.
Okay. Michael, I looked up the GDP of Greenland, and I think it ranks 148th in the world. So,
but there are 197 countries or 193 or whatever.
I'm going to say this is sounding very elitist, but please go on, Adam.
For the 56,000 people, it is significant in Greenland. But I have to say, favourite story of the week, and being sued over a ski accident, but then bringing up as your descriptor, she's built this business empire, right? And of all the things that they've chosen to highlight is the one Sean mentions. So I have to say that wins for favourite story of the week.
Adam, get out of the gutter, please. Come on. Outrageous.
Well, look, it's, what's that, 2.5 to 1.5? So shall we, let's call it even and go to the points.
Okay. Let's do that. Michael, 91 points.
Ah, that's not bad.
Really good.
Yeah.
And Sean, 93 points.
Oh.
And that includes, Michael, that there was a bonus point given.
Oh.
Remember?
Yes, no, well, it was actually supposed to be 2 bonus points.
Oh, sorry.
Not that I'm counting.
You can have it, and because it's not going to make much difference.
Okay, yeah, sorry, 92 then.
Yep, 93 to 92. That is close. That is very close.
High quality competition this morning.
Yeah, very good.
All right, great competition. Thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you, Michael.
And thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
Make sure you're following the podcast. Join us online on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and stay up to date on all the business news with Alexa and your Amazon Echo smart speaker. Simply say, Alexa, play the Fear and Greed podcast to catch the latest episode, and you can get yours now, of course, at amazon.com.au. I'm Michael Thompson. Have a great weekend.